So, tonight I want to talk about a topic that has been on my mind for a few days now, and I think it may or may not become an important topic to me in the short term. So, I'm not going to be talking about sports cards or electronics or any of the other things that I'm interested. And not only that, but I'm probably not going to edit this at all. If I do, it's going to be very, very, very minor edits. But my goal is that I take this and I push it up to YouTube just as is and don't worry about it. So I think what I want to talk about today is culture. So I have here a book. So this book is very important to me in the sense that it defined much of my childhood, even though most people have never seen it, and it is this book. So this book was by the Worldwide Church of God, which is the cult that I grew up in. Those of you who might recognize my voice might know which congregation I attended. I am not going to say here. But this book was very defining to my childhood in a serious way. This, the Bible, and a couple of other books were very much defining to my childhood. And I don't want to get into religion, right? This is not a religious discussion. I do not want this to become a religious discussion. I'm not interested in a religious discussion. This is about my experiences, my personal experiences, and what I've dealt with. But this is not about religion, okay? So I want to make that perfectly clear. This is not going to be a religious, podcast or whatever it's going to be. But this book has a bunch of hymns in it that were written by Dwight Armstrong, who was the brother of the cult leader who was actually running it, Herbert W. Armstrong. Many of these songs, we didn't know all of them. Many of these songs we sang every Saturday over and over and over again, right? I know some of them by heart. And they have a very distinct sound to them. And maybe someday I'll take the piano and I'll play them, but not right now. This is not what that's about. But this particular song I remember from my very early childhood, like 3 years old. This particular song here, I remember from many religious conventions or feasts we went to as a child. They would always play this like an opening night. And the sense of excitement at one of those feasts was palpable. You could go there and there was 10,000 people who were all there for the same purpose, and everyone was just excited. And, a lot of people, I think the closest I can come to explaining how that is, when people go to a Baby Metal concert. I mean, the atmosphere is just kind of electric there, right? And as the week progresses on, I'm not going to go into details of what everything was about. It gets a little bit more humdrum, and at the end, all the people are crying, as they leave. But the excitement of that week was just something that I have never been able to replicate in my life, and I can't imagine what could replicate it. Like I said, a rock concert might come close, but I have no interest in that. But you go to the feasts, and you sing these songs. This particular song has some very powerful memories to me. There's another song here. Where is it? This one. This song right here, whenever I play it, it evokes a memory that I don't even understand. It evokes a memory that I cannot even begin to, put a name to even. It's like there's something very powerful attached to it. I don't know what it is. But this is not about therapy, right? So I'm not gonna, go too deep into that. But what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to get across here is that this is a part of the culture that I grew up in, a very powerful part of the culture that I grew up in, that most people do not understand, cannot understand, and do not have any inkling about what it was like. Again, this is not about religion, and this is not even a pity party, right? I'm not telling you this, for you to feel sorry for me because, frankly, I'm beyond that now. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because, culture is something that has been on my mind lately. It is possible to grow up surrounded by a culture and not be a part of it. And that's what happened to me. I grew up surrounded by American culture, pop culture, Michael Jackson, Kiss, some of these other hair bands or whatever, Metallica, I guess. And I was surrounded by this culture, but I was not a part of this culture, and I was not allowed to be a part of the culture. I had my own culture, this culture, Worldwide Church of God culture. And as I grew up, I started to realize I was not part of this culture. And the honest truth is, I am still not a part of this culture. I still don't belong in this particular culture, right? The culture I'm surrounded by, the American culture, the pop culture, all this stuff that, people are involved in right now, I'm simply not a part of it. I never have been, and it's very likely that I never will be. So people do not understand that these people like me exist, right? You can exist, that you're a part of the culture in the sense that you exist in the culture. You're trying to make your way in the culture. You're participating in some of the shared, accoutrements of the culture, such as the economic system, or, having a job, or trying to, make a living, or this or that, right? Going to the grocery store, right? That's kind of a part of the culture. All these things are a part of the culture, but I'm not a part of the culture, not inside, not mentally. Mentally, I am of a completely different culture. You can imagine it's sort of like I was born in Japan and came here when I was like 15, and you wouldn't be all that far off, because that's exactly what it's like for me. So when people expect me to react as if I were a part of this culture, they're usually disappointed and sometimes upset because they simply don't understand I am not a part of it. I don't belong in this culture, and I never have. So whenever, I'm trying to think of an example in which that's true. So, for example, when I'm dating somebody, which hasn't happened in a long time and probably never will again. But when I'm dating somebody, they expect me to interact with them and like the same things that they do and react the same way that they would, because they expect me to be a part of their shared culture, and the honest truth is I'm not. I march to the beat of my own drum. I do my own thing. I have my own ideas and goals and stuff, and that's because I was never raised in the culture that they were raised in. But because I look the same way they do, and because I talk in some ways the same way that they do, everybody assumes that I am a part of their culture. And honestly, I'm not. I never have been. People like me exist. And if you don't understand this, then you're never going to understand me. And I've kind of given up hope on people understanding me, if I'm being quite honest, because that's just simply the way it is. But that's the simple truth. This book right here has more impact on my life and more memories attached to it than any piece of pop music that has ever existed. Except for maybe, I don't know, Roger Whittaker or John Denver's song, because my father liked those, or Glenn Miller or something like that. But this particular book has had an inordinate effect on my life. The cult that I grew up in has had an inordinate effect on my life. And the simple fact of the matter is that this is my culture. Your culture is not my culture. I might as well be Japanese. This has some benefits. So don't get me wrong. I'm not completely complaining here. So one of the benefits is that I can see things in the culture that most people cannot see. So I'm not getting political here, but there are a couple of sides to the debate right now. You know what they are. I'm not going to bother telling you. And I'm not going to tell you what my opinion on them are. But there are a couple of sides of the debate, and I can see things about them that the people who are in those cultures or, sides of the debate don't see. And for that reason, I don't completely hew to any of it. Because I can see some similarities to the culture that I grew up in, or the cult that I grew up in, and I just can't stomach it. So this has the benefit of being detached from the surrounding culture, has the benefit of allowing me to see things that people who are inside the culture cannot. The disadvantage is that people inside the culture don't like to hear that. So speaking truth, at least as I see it, is not a welcome thing. And another benefit is that, I'm detached from the culture, so things that might cause people a lot of difficulties or grief or whatever just don't affect me at all. For example, the Queen of England dying today. I mean, I don't like death, but it doesn't affect me really. She's remarkable person, definitely beloved by her subjects, and for that reason, I'm not happy about it, obviously, but I just, it's just not something that even really is on my radar, except that everyone's talking about it. I've tried to be a part of this culture. I have, spent a lot of time in my early adulthood trying to fit in, trying to, do the things that other people expect me to do, but I never did them right because I didn't understand them. Like using the example of dating, right? I never dated right. I never said the right things or did the right things, and it's because the way I was raised, they just, didn't teach me how to do that. I never, um, you know, going to college, that was a very stressful thing for me, to the point where I had to drop out because I just could not function in that environment. I didn't have the correct social education to do that because their culture was different than mine. I didn't understand their culture. I didn't understand how to function in it. And I'll be quite frank, I still don't. And even now, when it comes to work, right? And I know that, I have at least one follower who works with me, right? And so I'm taking a little bit of a risk here. But, you know, I don't really always fit in well there either. And that's been the case at every place I've worked, not just where I work now, but every place I've worked. I've never quite fit in. I've never quite, been able to play the game, or play the game's not the right word, but it's close enough. I've never been able to function culturally in a workplace in a way that's led to my recognition or advancement. And it's not fair to put that on anyone else because I can't. I mean, it's not their fault. It's not my culture, it's their culture, right? They are perfectly within their rights to expect me to behave or act in a certain way. And when I can't do it, they're also perfectly within their rights to, pass me over for somebody who can. And it's maybe it's not my fault, but it's my responsibility, right? So I'm not upset about that, but I also recognize it for what it is. It's just, the fact that I was not raised in this culture has damaged me so severely that it's almost impossible to, to function in this culture as it is right now without, without taking some, what's the right word? Without doing some severe acting. Let's put it that way. And acting is difficult because you can't keep it up forever. So I'm in my own culture right now because the church that I grew up in is gone. I mean, there are some splinters, but the church I grew up in disappeared in 1994. It vanished. There's no more church, no more cult. So the culture that I grew up in is gone. You could, maybe equate that to going to coming from a country, that vanished. I don't know, like maybe the old Yugoslavia or something, right? I don't know. That's a bad example. But anyway, so this is why I have such a hard time making YouTube videos. I'm going to go full circle on this now. This is why I have a hard time making YouTube videos, because the fact is, while I'm making YouTube videos that interest me, and while I am, making YouTube videos that I think might be of interest to people, the honest truth is, I don't know what's of interest to people. I haven't, learned how to speak to people in a way that fits their culture. I haven't learned the language of their culture in a way that makes them want to watch my video. So nobody's going to watch this, just my luck. This is the one that's going to take off. But nobody's going to watch this, and, nobody's really going to care all that much. So, I'm not taking a huge risk in posting this, but it's a little bit of one. And I just really want to say that, right? I may have a chance to say this to a wider audience at some point soon, and I may not. And the way things are going, it's more likely not. That's all right. I'm not expecting it. I have learned that not expecting anything, you never get disappointed. And when you're not a part of the culture, when you can't behave as part of the culture, when you can't interact with people as part of their culture, you never win. The best thing you can do is carve out your own niche and try to make a living with it. And I've done pretty good at that, but I'll never win. Never. Okay, that's all. I'm going to take a risk by posting this. I may even delete it at some point, but that's what I want to say. This book right here means nothing to you, means everything to me, because this book right here is what I was raised in.